respectable offering. It seems my offering was accepted. Autumn be praised. Was I ever really this innocent? Maybe before I started my training.
I should have known you'd wind up here eventually. You were somehow always here as a child.
If only I had known him. And still you masked even this from me. My own father's grave?
It wasn't you I was hiding it from. I've been making a lot of apologies to you lately. Now, they probably don't mean that much. But I am sorry, Hunter. Lilith's relationship with your father went against our ways, our purpose, or so I believed at the time. It was the Elder Gods themselves who first breathed life into us. Human notions like falling in love couldn't possibly be part of their plan.
And then you met Agatha.
If only I'd realized it sooner. I might have been a little kinder towards him, especially at the end.
What happened?
A great sickness came upon this area just before you were born. Your father was one of the first to fall.
With all your power, the two of you, you could not save him?
Lilith was a gifted healer, but this was no ordinary plague. The corruption went beyond his physical body. In the end, there was nothing we could do.
What did Lilith do?
She did what anyone would have done. She grieved. But in her grief, she lost herself, and her grief turned into anger.
Is that when you took me from her?
It wasn't long after that. Things started to fall apart before my eyes. I couldn't see another way out but to run.
The plague that turned her into the mother of demons?
No, this was something else, but cut from the same cloth. Your mother was no longer the woman I knew. The sister I had fought alongside for centuries. She was gone.
I have never heard you talk this way before, Sarah.
It's hard to walk the grounds here without churning up so many old memories. Maybe now you understand why I don't venture out here that often anymore.
You were not affected by the plague?
We were all affected, whether we were among the sick or not. I'm sure there was a time when your mother and I both would have just as soon joined the dead than continue to watch the villagers suffer.
I cannot imagine you ever reaching that point.
Lilith may have been the most skilled herbalist in the New World. I saw her perform near miracles with the potions she concocted from the plants in her garden. She was consumed by the idea of finding a cure.
But she never found one.
No, despite her efforts, Nothing ever worked.
I can see how that would be a dark time for both of you.
With darker times still to come.
Thank you, Sarah. Your timing may need work, but I appreciate the honesty.
Anything for you, Hunter. Anything.
If only it were always this easy to bring a family together.
You're looking stronger than ever, kiddo.
Tell me about my father.
Believe it or not, you can thank your father for those good looks of yours. There is a striking resemblance.
I only have the faintest memory of him. What was he like?
He was honest, a working man, you could say, authentic. Of course, I still didn't like him, but that wasn't really his fault. I'm old enough to admit that now.
But he loved my mother?
He loved her, and she was smitten with him. As the story goes, they were happy together. For a time.
Until I came along?
You were an unexpected gift, but a welcome one. Your father was very proud.
I wish I could talk with him now.
I know that feeling all too well, kiddo.
Something terrible happened here. This area, it feels wrong somehow. I sense an old suffering.
Members of the local coven were persecuted here. And worse.
Witches?
Salem's history with witches may have been distorted over the years, but some things are true. The witches of Salem did their best to thwart Shaw, but he rallied his congregation against them. The catalyst of the infamous Salem witch trials. When the coven called out in distress, it was Lilith and Sarah who came to their aid.
Caretaker and my mother knew their powers could help others, and they did not hesitate.
Of course not, dear. Your mother was a gifted healer, and Sarah was never one to back down from a fight. They also knew the signs of Chthon's influence, and Shaw's sudden rise to power undoubtedly got their attention.
Chthon's corruption had taken root in the New World, just like the colonists themselves.
And while Lilith and Sarah were still preoccupied in Transia, they entrusted one of the moon seals to the Knights of Wundagore, who brought it to the Coven with the hope that its power would reinforce them enough to deal with Shaw.
But that is not what happened.
Unfortunately, no. When the plague came to Salem, the same one that afflicted your father, Shaw used it to further agitate his flock by placing the blame squarely on the Coven.
And the witches?
The mob was vicious. And the rest is history.
But what about the Moon Seal?
After the trials, the Moon Seal vanished along with Shaw. Without drawing any conclusions, I think we can both guess where it went.
If this was his church, then it is possible the seal is still here, or somewhere nearby.
You read my mind. Good hunting, dear.
Was this always here? I may have forgotten a few things, but I feel as if I would remember a decrepit church on the grounds.
You may not remember the structure, but maybe you've heard of the man responsible for it? Hiram Shaw? This was his house of worship, and like a great many things on the grounds, Sarah preferred to keep it in a sort of mystic quarantine. Even I haven't been inside.
Is that all she did while I slept? Seal things off for our protection?
She can be overzealous at times, but in this case, she was right to be wary.
So what dark secret does this place hold?
When Hiram Shaw first came to Salem, he was little more than a charlatan posing as a preacher. He managed to convince a few desperate souls to join his congregation, and with their help, he broke ground on this church. Whether it was coincidence or fate, in digging beneath the church, Shaw found something that would change the course of all of our lives. A long-forgotten page of the Darkhold.
If Shaw found a page of the Darkhold, it was because Chthon wanted it that way.
I tend to agree. That cursed book is always seeking out a way to return its master to power.
And a power-hungry preacher makes for the ideal messenger of darkness.
Yes, Shaw was an eager study, consumed almost immediately by the whisperings of Chthon and the Darkhold's power. Nearly overnight, the people of Salem, old and new, were at his threshold, waiting for the word.
How long did the Salem witches hide here before meeting their end? Noble Ushtur guides my hand. ward is not like anything I have seen on the grounds before.
And yet, it's familiar somehow.
Like the wards of protection that Wanda invoked to protect Dr. Strange's sanctum?
Very perceptive, dear. Maybe you should approach the good doctor and see if he has any insights. And Hunter, be circumspect. Dr. Strange is no fool. Something on your mind?
Tell me
By
about
all
Hiram
accounts,
Shaw.
Hiram Shaw. As I understand it, he was a largely unsuccessful minister before his arrival at Salem, traveling from place to place, swindling whatever followers he managed to gain before being run out of town. To think that a simple man like Shaw finding a piece of the Darkhold was enough to set all of this in motion, it puts things in perspective.
What do you know about my father?
That's not an easy question, dear. What would you like to know? Was he a good man? Yes, I think he was. Your mother loved him dearly, and he doted over her. I think for a time she forgot who she was, where she came from. And I don't mean that as a bad thing. She and Sarah both deserve to find something more than just another fight with Chthon. Lilith did. Sarah didn't. At least, not for a while longer still. I honestly think that's the only thing she ever had against him, blood or not.
Did Wanda ever make it to this place?
I suspect she did. But if she discovered something, she didn't tell me. Until we speak again.
I look forward to catching up with Dr. Morbius. He can be quite pleasant. On occasion. There's more to this workspace than meets the eye, Hunter. These flames aren't born of any fire.
If an experiment is dangerous, I get more interested.